Good afternoon. This is Kevin Karan, Real Money Reporter with TheStreet.com. I am here with the very appropriately named J. Smoke Wallin, president of Vertical Companies. It is a California-based company that helps with marketing, compliance, and distribution of cannabis products. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, one of the things that we're talking about a lot with cannabis right now is the big news, of course, is legalization in Canada last week. I think one of the things that people are curious about, though, is it seems like it's been a false start with a lot of companies not starting out on this hot streak that it seemed like they were on throughout all of September. Could you kind of explain to me what's the hang up here?
Yeah, so of course it was a very historic moment, right? The actual repeal of prohibition in the live day, and so there was a lot of excitement building up to it, but you know, what I've said to others is that, you know, day one is a lot of excitement. Day two, you have to run a business. And the fact is that most of these companies aren't operational yet. The stores aren't open, and it's a very limited selection. So, you know, Canada made a huge step forward in many ways and groundbreaking, but what they're allowing to have happen is flower only, which is just the smokable plant, which is very limiting, to say the least.
No, yeah. Actually, I interviewed Bruce Linton, who's the CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation, one of the blue chips that Jim Cramer here likes to tout quite a bit. And he made a similar point. He said that there are too many companies in this space and not enough businesses, and it's reminiscent of a .com situation. I don't know if you have a reaction to that or any experience with something like that.
I couldn't agree with Bruce more. I mean, I had a .com back in the day, and we were a real business, and there was a lot of not real businesses at the time. Guys buying foosball tables and boats and all kinds of things, and they weren't running companies. And you know, that sorted itself out. That'll happen here. There's a lot of folks that are doing financial engineering to try to be in this space. And you know, the handful of companies that execute and know what they're doing and build real businesses have built companies in the past and are going to build them here, are going to be hugely successful. But there's going to be a lot of fallout from the others.
No, definitely. And one of the things that a lot of the Canadian companies and investors here in the United States are looking at is the giant honeypot at the end of the road, which is legalization in the United States. And we've talked in the past, and you have somewhat of an ambitious prediction for when legalization might come. So I would love to hear that prediction and then also your rationale for that.
Well, earlier this year, I would have said 3 to 5 years. Fast forward to now, and I believe it's 12 to 18 months. And you know, I believe that because public sentiment has moved dramatically. Political sentiment has moved dramatically, and for a lot of reasons. The opioid epidemic, this is one of the solutions. The veterans and PTSD, you know, are very much in favor of this. But probably most importantly, and really talking about the conservative side of the aisle to get them on board, is really the states' rights issue. You know, these states have, 30 states in the U.S. have already legalized cannabis in some form or fashion. 9 have done recreational adult use. And many more are following here at the next week's election, I'm sure. So when you have all these states that have made the will of the people is to allow this, you've got a conservative argument that says states' rights is a really important piece, and that's winning over a lot of converts right now.
And on the conservative side, one thing that I've been following closely is the Farm Bill, which would allow for hemp and CBD. For people who maybe aren't as familiar with the cannabis industry, I was hoping that you could kind of break down what the difference between THC and CBD and all of these acronyms that we throw around and how those products can be differentiated in attacking certain markets.
Yeah, absolutely. So CBD is the one of the medicinal components of cannabis. So it basically promotes, it helps fight inflammation and pain relief, and there's a lot of uses for it. The THC is the psychoactive component of cannabis. So that's the one that gets you, quote, high, right? So you can separate those out, and you can create CBD from cannabis. You can also create CBD just from hemp. Hemp is, the plant has almost no or just trace amounts of THC. So the hemp bill, which is part of the farm bill that's expected to pass probably after this election, but before the end of the year.
Coming from Mitch McConnell as well. So
absolutely.
If you want to talk about conservative.
Yeah, and that should pass before the end of the year, and that will make hemp-based CBD legal in 50 states for 2019. And the exciting thing is, so at Vertical, we've invested in both sides of the business, and Friday I'll be in Kentucky at a ribbon cutting of our new hemp processing facility, which is very exciting because it's a really booming business, and I have one brand that we're launching that we'll put into 1,000 convenience stores in December, and we'll build from there. So it's a hot market.
Gotcha. And I guess we touched upon the opioid market and some of the medicinal uses. I know that you also come from an alcohol background and alcohol distribution. I wanted to touch on, when we're looking at the disruptive nature of cannabis, which industries do you think it's going to move through first, and which do you think it might have the biggest impact on?
Well, I think it's going to touch a lot of industries. I completely agree with that. And certainly the beverage alcohol space is one. And so every major company, every big brand company, even all the big distributors now, are either already investing in or looking to invest in or figure out their strategy around the space. And let's face it, beer, wine, and spirits has been around for thousands of years, so has cannabis. And now this is the fourth leg of the wheel, if you will, and certainly from the perspective of like a constellation.
Yeah.
I think that the distributors are looking at it seriously because they're like, well, we're not going to get left out. We want to be part of it. I was chairman of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America back in the day. I know those guys are all very actively looking at things. A couple of them have made investments in Canada already, and a number of the families are investing currently in the U.S.
Gotcha. So they are looking actively, because I know that we've heard about Constellation or Molson Coors, a couple of them, but you think it's across the industry, most of them are probably looking at it?
I think I know that a lot of family offices are making investments in the cannabis space in the U.S. currently.
Fantastic.
Both beer, wine distribution, spirits distribution, and also brand owners.
Definitely something to take a look at. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was unrelated to the alcohol segment, which they sell intoxicants. They might be more willing to go into intoxicants. I think the interesting thing for investors recently has been more conservative, all-American brands like Coke looking at it as well. Do you think that that's the next step, that we'll get Coke and Pepsi branded cannabis products? And then secondarily, is the beverage market that's non-alcoholic one of the next dominoes to fall in this?
So I think certainly on the hemp-based CBD side of the world, you're going to see entrants from a wide range of CPG companies. I think companies like Nestle and CocaCola are absolutely in the mix there. And some of them may be in the full THC version too. It's hard to imagine Coke doing that, but you could see it happening. But it's such a big growth opportunity. Any big company who's looking for growth and they're eking out 1-2% growth in their normal core business has to look at this. It's going to be such a large business.
Gotcha. Well, it's such a large business that all of these companies across alcohol, medicinal, sports recovery, even pets industries are looking at it. So before you know it, it might be in your portfolio, and we'll keep you updated here at TheStreet.com and Real Money. Very much a pleasure to have Smoke here to run us through it.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.